Ladies and gentlemen, in this video, I am super excited to share with you a very easy to learn, easy to practice, and very tricky and potentially dangerous opening weapon that you can add to your toolbox. That opening is known as the Ponziani. I am going to split this video into 3 parts. First part, I will show you the moves on a big board, and all the moves are in the description if you want to play with them on any chess website. And then I have 2 practice games that I played against my subscribers. This opening is so common, and you will get it almost all the time if you are playing, especially if you are around 1200 and below. But it works far beyond that, trust me. So we're going to be playing the Ponziani opening. You have the white pieces. You are rated 3500 in a Grandmaster. Or maybe not, because if you are, then why are you listening to me? And you're going to open up the game with e4. Now, your opponent's going to play e5, which is the most common move, and you are going to play knight to f3. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, my opponent doesn't play that, they didn't play this, they didn't play that, that's where you fill in the gaps on your own. I cannot give you a full repertoire with the white pieces. Almost no video can do that, but you have to add bits and pieces as you go along. So, we're going to play knight f3, opponent's going to play knight c6. This is the most common position that occurs after 2 moves in chess, and now you're going to play the move c3. Why? What is the idea of the move c3? The idea of the move c3 is to sacrifice the natural developing square for your knight and build for a big pawn center. In and of itself, that is the idea. Now, the best move for black in this position is immediately striking the center with the move pawn to d5. That move is like 50 to 60% less common than the next 3 or 4 moves. The most common move in this position is knight to f6. The second most common move in this position is bishop c5, which is a horrible move. And at all levels, it is the second most popular move because you just play d4. This move makes no sense because you get a massive center. You get 2 active pawns in the center, and very quickly you can start shoving your opponent's pieces backwards, finishing your development, and castling your king. The 2-pawn Ponziani center, maybe also spelled P-A-W-N, Ponziani, is so vicious. And the crazy thing is, so many people play bishop c5, and you're just going to get this monster center. It doesn't really matter what black does. Black doesn't have to give you the check. Black can go here. Folks, look at this position. You're already winning after like 7 moves. You attack the knight, you take, you damage your opponent's structure, you got 2 massive pawns in the center, d5 is on the way, bishop c4 and queen b3 are on the way. So many people are going to play bishop c5, and boom, d4, you're already like much better, if not winning. Crazy. And the same can be said of a move like d6. d6, same exact thing. And there's even a nice little trap here, which is if your opponent does this, you play h3. And the point is that if they ever take this pawn, you have attack on the knight, knight moves, queen a4 is a fork. And that fork happens in a lot of places. For example, remember a few moves ago, bishop b4, knight c3, knight f6, look, d6, oh, check, boom, hit the king, hit the bishop. This is very common in the Ponziani. It will happen to you in many of your games. The second best move is the move knight to f6. You will play d4 anyway, and now black has a choice between which pawn to capture. Taking this pawn is a little bit dangerous because now you are going to play d5, and then you're going to take this pawn back. So the knight moves, knight takes e5. I'm allergic to how bad black's position is. Knight takes e5, and in this position there is another vicious trap. So your idea here, if you're playing with white, develop, queen f3, hit the knight, hit mate. There's a nasty trap in this position after the move, d6. Now, you might think, oh, Gotham, queen a4, you just showed this to me. No, it's even worse than that. In this position, you play bishop b5 check, and there is no way for your opponent to get anything in the way. Here a variation might go c6, pawn takes pawn, and if they do this, you have check, and you're just clearing out the position and making a new queen. If they do this, which I have seen, or pawn takes, you have knight takes, pawn takes, and you're going to be picking up which of these 2 pieces is better to capture. You can take the rook, but taking a knight for nothing is even better, and you are completely winning. And last but not least, You have one of the most disgusting tactics I have ever seen, and probably you have ever seen either. So if you've made it about 4 or 5 minutes in this video, watch this. Queen b6 is a threat on your bishop and a threat of mate. And in this position, you will play pawn takes discover check. If your opponent takes, you take the rook and make a queen. But if they don't, be very careful. Here you play knight takes f7 check, the black king cannot move, and now you play pawn takes, and you make a knight. Aren't you glad you clicked on this video? If you take a rook, promote to a knight, and fork a king and a queen, you officially don't need to win another chess game for the rest of your life. For 3 lifetimes. That's it. You solve chess. I mean, you win. Your opponent moves, you take this, you go on to win the game. Some of you would still find a way to lose this game with white, but, you know, while that is impressive, that is something that we're going to try to avoid. Folks, this is such a vicious trap in such a vicious opening. Bishop b5 is game over. Completely game over. So many people have fallen for this trap at so many levels. The first ever Ponziani game that I played was a blitz game against a 2800 rated international master. I'm not going to expose that person because FIDE might rescind their title of international master after that game, and this is exactly what they fell for. The first ever game I played, a blitz game against a 2800, and if that happens, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, you're gonna catch so many people with this stuff. And there are other lines, of course, like they can take like this, and if pawn takes d4, you're not gonna take back, you're gonna shove the pawn forward, attacking the knight. Most commonly, they play knight to d5. I like queen b3, and I like setting up like this, like this on the diagonal, but you can also play bishop c4, and then sliding back and doing this. This is kind of more gambit style, trying to give up a pawn. In general, if you can get your pawns like this in the Ponziani, like that tight formation, the second black allows themselves to get overwhelmed, the game is over. Just absolutely over, no questions asked. And if they try to build a wedge, and this will be rock solid, if you keep those pawns together, black is going to have a very difficult time trying to get rid of you. Now, there is also this move, queen e7, and it looks like here you can block the pin with queen e2. You can't do that because there is a really ridiculous deflection move. This is all included in the moves, but you just do this, and if they try to target your pawn, you have to remember the move bishop to b5, pinning the knight to the king. So sometimes you do have to remember an exact move. If you just play it off, random memory, you might not remember, you might get a terrible position. But d4 is the most natural move, and then you have to know what to do with this and what to do with this. The best move against the Ponziani is the move d5, and there are some very tricky lines here. I really like queen a4, and the idea is to pin the knight to the king, and if they take, you do this. And now you're threatening to capture here. If bishop d7, very simple, grab the bishop, take the pawn with check, and you are just one pawn up, and you have the bishop pair, and you have a +2 advantage according to Stockfish. I had this in a Title Tuesday game against like a 2500 rated player. And there are other lines. The best line is f6. That's a ridiculous looking move, and I put these moves for you in the description. Bishop b5, putting pressure. You can capture, attack the center, castle. Do a little bit more work on this line on your own, but very, very aggressive stuff here. The computer, it's going to bounce back to equality very quickly. It's just on a low depth. Don't be scared. You might not even know what low depth means. There's other lines, queen a4, bishop d7, for example. Blocking the pin is an accidental loss of a pawn. It's actually considered okay by Stockfish, but I think a lot of your opponents are going to blunder this and completely panic. But this is also in the description. You just bring the knight back, something like this. And even here, there's a very nasty trap where you can play check and sacrifice your queen and get the queen back and then get the bishop back, and you're just doing well. D5 is the best move, but it's the 4th most common. So I think what you're far more likely to face is knight f6 and bishop c5. You have to know your d5 lines. And in my opinion, the Ponziani is so slept on. I mean, get rid of that Italian, get rid of the Rue Lopez. This is such a fun opening to play. And if you know your lines, you're going to vaporize people. Absolutely vaporize people. Hope you enjoyed this little intro. Let's check out these 2 games.